My sanitary district meetings are always that third Wednesday when the planning meetings are, so. Yeah.
Lauren, I think you're all set.
Thank you, everyone. I'm very sorry to say, but I just realized that I do not have approval of bills on the agenda. That was a complete oversight on my part. So I'm very sorry about that.
That means you can't approve them.
Can't pay them.
Yep.
No, but really, is that,
I don't know
what's the protocol here? Like to sign off on bills.
can we add it to the agenda, President?
We can't change the agenda right now.
Okay. Could have a special meeting to approve them. They need to be done.
If there's any, is there anything
Like 380.
it's one of them, the Fraser bill? Because I think the Fraser bill could come under the emergency repair provision. And that Lauren could actually approve that anything that's an emergency repair, the secretary can approve.
Oh, that's great, good.
That's 180,000.
I'm very sorry about this.
Okay,
It looks like it's getting solved.
All right.
It's 9:01. Thursday morning, October 17th. Call this meeting of the Town of LaPointe Board of Harbor Commissioners to order. With us this morning, we have Jay Wiltz here, Susan Whitmer here, Michael Collins,
Here,
Pete Ross.
Here.
Self, Zach Montang, Glenn Carlson.
Here.
We have Evan Erickson on Zoom, but he's muted. And we also on Zoom have Lauren Berteau, and in person, we have Katie Kisner. As well as Lee Baker via Zoom and Cal Linehan and Robin Russell from NIFL. I guess we'll open the floor to public comment. Hearing no public comment, let's move on to Harbor Commission newsletter update and discussion with Lee Baker.
yeah, if I may start with we talked about this thing at the last meeting, that the opportunity to communicate all kinds of things that are happening in our first year are always there for the Gazette, but there's not a lot of frequency with the Gazette, and also the reach of that as a communication giver has its own limitations. Lee has been kind enough to say, well, you might want to consider a newsletter, whatever form that's in. Mentioned that to Glenn, and she and I have been talking about it. There's probably ample content, but the big question is process. How do we proceed with doing it? And at that point, I would like to shut up and ask Lee if you've got any sort of central governing thoughts on this thing. You all know Lee, but what you may not know, she's a very accomplished and very energetic writer and organizer of communication events.
Well, those are very kind words. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I know I have just had this idea because I know now that as a user, as a member of the new Harbor Commission Ferry Lines setup, I have questions like, well, do I still get a discount card? How's this going to work? I just have had questions, and certainly, sitting with friends over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, those kinds of conversations have come up as well. So I just thought, yeah, it'd be really helpful to have a venue that communicates questions or answers information to our owners now. So that was kind of why I prompted this idea and this thought. And I guess some of my questions, what's the goal of this publication, the distribution, frequency, the length of it, who's our, defining our audience, et cetera. So, and those are more really questions for I think for you all, or for conversation.
I think in terms, there are two big questions that I have, I sort of a knee-jerk response to it, but one of them is frequency of communication, whatever form it is. And that frequency would be connected to its reach. Who are we communicating with? And if so, what are the options for doing that? I am not imagining a printed hard copy quote newsletter. I am imagining, and I'm making this thing up, a web page, a website that says, that has a sort of the go-to place. It is refreshed on some regular basis, but also populated by, the moment when something really needs to be communicated. Mifflin's been doing that very well, in my opinion, for years. That little bulletin that says, "Uh-oh, here's a news thing you've got to think about," whatever the issue, usually the problem or the shortcoming in a schedule or weather or something. But we have bigger opportunities now, I think, and that is to talk about the things like the purchasing of a truck. That's a story that I think has a greater public good built into it, but people don't understand it perhaps. Budget preparations, the wrestling match of, what the process is, or what kinds of issues we're wrestling with. I don't know if we want to put that in there or not. But there is always something. What I was hoping for, Lee, is that we could find, maybe as a consequence of this meeting, permission from you guys to set up a template, a format. Here's how this thing looks. Okay. And it would be probably on if you can imagine it, sort of on a 1-page or 2-page format. It's very easily understood on a screen. The second thing we come back to you with is a recommendation about its reach. Where would it go? The third is, how is this managed? Who's in charge of? There may be some writing chores, but the writing chores go and need to be formatted into something that Lee, I hope, can create. Once that format's there, other writers can come in and put information in as it's needed. Once the distribution system is set up, theoretically, it's a button push.
I could see it being incorporated into the town's current website as a subset.
That'd probably be an easy way to get it out there,
Mhm.
'cause
I
the
agree.
town's already got that. I also think it'd be really great for people to be able to submit their questions via that website. So when people have concerns or issues, it would be really useful to get those things heard immediately, so things don't
Fester.
fester.
Does this also live on the Ferry Line? And I think the Ferry Line has a page through the chamber, is that right? Because I think a lot of people would say, oh, well, I have a question about, will I get a discount card or whatever? And I might go to the Ferry Line instead of going to the Town on the Point page.
You could come up with a single page that just is a quick directional back into the town's page.
I think for stuff regarding like scheduling and stuff like that, people already know to go to the phone.
Yeah, scheduling and day-to-day operations and weather issues, those things are, people have been
Mad cars, I think people already know.
trained to go to that. Yeah. I think it's the operations of not the operations, it's the planning and the information. For instance, this is another one I just thought about, but we talked about is, how's business? The owners, that is the townspeople, might want to know how business is. How we doing? Are there questions about traffic and that kind of stuff? I think a lot of business owners would love to know, what's up.
I would wonder about the priorities and how we do this. I think a newsletter is a different idea than a website.
Yep.
And so when I think of a newsletter, I think kind of like what St. John's does with the lighthouse that Lee edits and writes. that is a monthly, I think it's monthly, that it goes out to an email list. And I'm sure that and church though also has a website, for, access to the archives of the, services, but
And for
also
donations.
to donations and whatnot. But it really isn't used so much as a, sort of real time getting information out that, I think more, sort of it's the long-term stuff that they want to retain on that. And so I'm wondering if we, are thinking about, to me, setting up a website is a lot more complicated than, publishing a newsletter that you email to people. And so I'm wondering if, maybe we start off with doing an email newsletter, and then, eventually, we want to find a home to archive those, right? And among other things. And so then I think, it might be down the road, more of a website thing. Lee, what do you think?
I think that's fine. Two questions come to my mind, or one thought is you could still do the newsletter idea or format, and you could post it on the Town of La Pointe website, and then have a place for, people to submit questions, et cetera. So it wouldn't have to be emailed to people per se, and I don't know what that email distribution is, because is it taxpayers? Or do people, sign up and register or that kind of thing? Does the Town of La Pointe have access? Because who the members are now of this public utility, I'm assuming are all the taxpayers. So would that be something that you could do, is email taxpayer? I don't know how that works.
I like your idea of just attaching it to the town's website, publishing it on the town's website, and people, we do have this texting ability. We can text everyone and tell them, hey, the latest edition of the Harbor newsletter is now on the town's website.
Then you can just archive them from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you were thinking of, when we were talking about the town's website anyway, was
Yeah, I don't think you need to build a website. All you need to do is build a single page, and you can link back and forth wherever you need to. You can incorporate whatever's on the Miffle.
yeah,
Yeah,
page.
it's just a landing page.
It's just
Yeah, it's
a
a landing
page, exactly.
okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If you're in agreement, and if Lee is willing, the next step would be to come up with a format and some thoughts for this group to approve regarding sort of the process by which this would be put together. I think the process might include Lauren, at some point, with the content, if there's a format for this page, for this landing page point, then that might not require Lee to be to be writing every aspect of it if there is a template.
Mhm.
And what we could do is provide information to Lauren, and she can enter it into the page and just get it out there on the website. Okay,
I'd like to
Right.
propose that we have Michael Collins be the town or the board liaison, and have it be Lee and Lauren and Katie to work on this.
fair enough. Lee, you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great to me. It really does. That would be, this is fun for me, you all. It really is. I love doing this kind of stuff. So it's great. Yeah, no, that sounds good. One comment, I went on the Town of La Pointe Harbor Commission page, and there are a couple typos. And so it just, in terms of the members of this, so I can send you an email of what those are. But anyway, there were 2 typos in the names or the
Alright.
titles.
If
People's
you would like to
titles.
send that to me, that would be greatly
I will do that.
super.
Okay. And what are you thinking of? What are you all thinking about in terms of frequency of updating this landing page?
I would think just
Monthly.
monthly.
Unless there's a bulletin.
unless there was something that needs to be, you know,
Mhm.
newsflash. But
Great. And then, Michael, can you, or whoever owns it, could I get all the articles that have been in the Gazette since the Harbor Commission got started?
Yep.
Does somebody
Yep.
own those and they could email it to me? Because I could just pick out a few gems here and there.
Yep,
Okay.
I know who
When
to go to.
When do you, I started playing around with the layout already, but when do you all want to see, how often do you all meet and when do you want to see something?
That question, will be probably answered towards the end of this meeting, and you don't need to have to, but what we decide at the end is, when is our next meeting? We've been meeting regularly on a weekly basis,
Okay,
but we're
yep.
trying not to have to gather every week.
Yeah.
So we may go an extra 2 weeks. So can I get back to you
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem. Yeah,
by today? I will, yeah.
okay.
At
And you
your
guys,
leisure.
thank you for looping me in on this. I've just had this little dream that it'd be fun to do, so thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank
We're
you.
very lucky to have your attention.
Yes,
So, be fun, okay.
thank you.
So. Yeah, I'll do it.
I think the question of who's managing it is you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we'll look forward to the first draft and go from there.
That sounds great. Do you mind if I just hang on to this, continue to stay at your meeting then? Just picking up
By all
information
means.
and so forth? Okay, thanks.
Great.
If we don't have anything further for that, let's move to the minutes of the October 10th meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes of Thursday, October 10th.
I have one potential change under number 11. The Madeline project update. Cal Linehan gave commissioners an update that included a modified timeline of when the repairs will be complete. Extra sandblasting is required, shafts are bent, and the propeller's steel. Never mind, I answered my own question. I thought that the steel is not in good condition, reference other parts of the boat. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Katie's report? Administrative officer report?
Yes, I think part of my report is actually listed as other line items, but I'll just do the top part. With the update of the Harbor Commission bank accounts, this is as of Tuesday, the 15th. And then our October revenue as of the 15th, is just under 256,000, which puts us at 54.8% of the budget for the month.
Good.
So we're kind of right there at half. The progressive auto policy, Robin did sign off on officially canceling that. Which, did you ever hear anything back from Kyle?
Yeah, he sent me a new DocuSign with the 8/23 date. And that, it wouldn't, change the date until they had a copy of the new
Okay,
policy.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it seems like everything's fine.
okay. And then I do have the document just of the 7 PM trips, has the ridership numbers. Anybody have any questions about that? It's pretty straightforward with the number of adults.
I do have a question, but it's to Robin and Cal. So have you guys seen these?
Robinson.
Yeah, so, all right. Are these breaking even? Are we losing money on most of these trips? Like, what's the consensus?
We're losing money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make any money, and you can't really pick out the students. There aren't that many students on that. I mean, there are the soccer kids. And I got this from one captain who kind of pays attention to things, and, so, yeah, you're losing money. So, and you're also, the aggravation for not having those double coverage and warning for the contractors and is is a problem that we get beat on in the office all the time.
I did see two soccer players on six.
I'm curious as if we think that like students that are staying later and taking like the 6 o'clock boat, once that goes away, like are there gonna be more for the like last 2 weeks, taking the 7 instead?
What I wrote on the bottom of the page. Sequoia water is the only one that's involved in any track. Okay, the captain said that, and she worked Tuesday and Wednesday, so she didn't know about Monday, but she said there are students that are hanging, they're not in school, they're not in activities, they're just.
Yeah.
So, you know. Yeah. And the school just sent an email to Cal and I about student teacher days. And we're just gonna offer them that 7 p.m. coming back. They're through Fall Fest, there's a couple of conference things, and then there's a later vote requested December 11th for concert. You know, Christmas thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and that will be weather dependent. It's not, I mean, that's what we've done in the past. Wind and weather.
Just a quick note, Evan sent a message saying that the point of the 7 p.m. trip wasn't to create revenue and profit from, but to add more flexibility to Islanders.
Still a good thing to know whether it's making money or not.
We'll always ask that question.
Yeah.
I assume, I don't know, it's probably a better question than a statement, but I'm wondering if there's a lot of boats this time of year that don't make money. You know, that don't
Yeah.
have enough ridership to
Well, I think the problem is,
a
there's a
lot.
lot of, you know, if you probably end of October through early June, if you're talking cash flow.
Right.
They don't make money. But this, because of the scheduling and the limit of 12-hour shifts and,
Right.
you know, crew, that makes it particularly hard, and really to staff this, you'd almost have to have a couple more captains year round. You know what I mean? Because we're lucky as far as deckhands right now, some of the ones that are going through the captain's license and things like that, but it's really tough to schedule, especially when you have a lot of maintenance this time of year and run the boat and then extra trip, you know what I mean? It's like you're pulling all directions.
And then the last thing on my list, you guys had requested an update with the Brummer propane situation. I don't know if that's, you guys wanted me to wait until that line item or?
We'll just talk about it when we get there.
Move, replace. Fine.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to the Bayfield Kids Ferry ridership discussion. And thank you for finding the minutes. Lauren.
Yeah, I that's the only thing I found in the minutes that actually pertain to Bayfield Kids ridership and whether or not they will pay. Yeah, that's all I could find. So, I mean, it sounds like the contract started with Bayfield School District students and then got changed to just Madeline Island resident students.
Yeah, I know we had discussed it early on. Couldn't remember where it was up.
Yep, this is.
Yep.
I'd like to tie this in with the discussion of getting an accurate count of students, which I think is a real important thing for the ferry line, of the number of student passengers, both the morning and the afternoon. I think that in this sort of interregnum period, it's probably been a bit sloppy in terms of who's supposed to do what. And I know we've been going back and forth on trying to come up with a solution to make sure that, you know, that the ferry line has an accurate count of the number of students when they leave the dock here and when they leave the other side.
Yeah, that's what the last award was all about, because I went down to the boat and I was at least, you know, 5-6 minutes before they left, because they don't leave exactly at 7:30, 7:33 or something like that. And the chaperone was already in the seat.
Yeah.
The passenger cabin was full, and there's people coming down the dock, the stragglers and all that kind of stuff, so it's.
Well, here's my idea is, what if the Harbor Commission or the ferry line or the school were to issue something that looks like a MAG card but isn't, okay? With each student's name on it, there'd be 30 of them, right? Including the students here. And when they board, they give that card to the ticket taker. And can I finish, Robin?
Yeah.
They give that card to the ticket taker. The ticket taker has accumulated those cards. They can count them and give the count, and then they can, at the end of the trip, hand that stack of cards to the chaperone, who can distribute them on the bus. And then the kids, now they may not all remember, so there might be a straggler or two who you got to actually do a paper, you know, ticket to. But that to me seems like a way to really have a good count of how many students are on. Frankly, when the chaperone then gets off and they're passing out the cards in the bus, you know, they'll be like, whoa, I got an extra card. Who's not here? You know, and so, you know, to me, to try to simplify this as much as possible without getting afoul of the school's privacy issues and without burdening the ferry line. Anyhow, Robin, you had a point on this.
Last year or something, when we had differences of opinion with the school about this, we issued 14 different MAG cards, and they were supposed to make tickets, but the boat crew is so busy.
Right.
It's people, if you
Yeah.
go down there at 7:30, it's just.
Yeah,
It's like mayhem.
I'm not saying they make tickets.
No, but still the cards, they have to collect it from the student.
Well, they have to collect tickets from everybody that comes
No,
in.
but they don't see everybody, you know, everybody's here and there, and they sometimes catch them up in the pilot or in the passenger cabin. But the students, it would be so much easier if that chaperone was on.
Well, I think it's the responsibility of the ferry line to collect the ticket from every passenger.
Well, we have to make the ticket.
No, they'll just give you this card.
I think, well, in my opinion, I think you need to go down there and see at 7:30. And in the winter, sometimes we only have 2 crew on board too.
Sure,
So
but there's always a ticket taker, right?
No,
Whether.
there's a ticket taker, but they have to, you know, sell tickets.
Well, they don't have to sell them to these kids.
No, but they have to
It's
sell
just-
to everybody else.
Yeah, but these are just other passengers.
Yeah.
Okay,
Instead of handing them the paper printout slip, they give them this card that
Yeah.
they,
Yeah,
that
but
they own. And
the
then
ticket taker can count up at when they have a minute, once everybody's on board, so they have time
they
to
don't have
do
to
it.
issue tickets.
So they have to recognize each student, because
The student has a card to give them.
I know, but if the kid doesn't do it, you know.
They don't get on the boat. The card.
Well, then we'll have to tell the parents that, because we.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Good idea for a newsletter.
I don't know, what do you think, Kel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's workable. I mean, again, it's a permanent ticket.
Right,
That's what you're creating.
Yeah.
It's a permanent
That's a
ticket.
better sin. That's
Yeah,
what it really
yeah.
is.
yeah, it's a permanent ticket.
Well, then it's a MAG card that has no value on it.
If that
Uh,
works.
Yeah,
But then you wouldn't have to, you know, if you make it a permanent ticket that's not gonna have a charge, you could just collect those permanent tickets, not print out anything,
Exactly.
and just turn them back over to the chaperone at the end of the trip.
But somebody has to make sure that each student that the crew doesn't know hands in a ticket.
Yeah.
Even the ones that they do know have to hand them the ticket. Everyone has to hand them.
But
their-
this is honestly, this is better for us because then it's the same for every pass.
But then what has to happen is what happens a lot of times is people go on the boat because they don't have a car, it's cold and they aren't dressed for it. So there's a rush at the beginning. And so,
How hard is it for someone to take cards?
we'll check with the crew. I mean,
But I think
I don't-
we're good.
I don't think, why is it a problem for that chaperone to stay on the dock until the last board?
Because they've never had to, and we're getting some resistance from the school on that.
But the problem with the chaperones, they're supposed to be chaperoned.
Yeah, yeah. But chaperoning and keeping an accurate count are two different things.
Yeah, but they don't, but they're in the passenger cabin and the students are all over the boat.
Right, right.
That's the problem, is they're not really.
Well, behavior issues, we have a procedure for dealing with behavior issues. So anyhow,
Can we give this a try? If it,
Well,
If it
we need
flies-
that contract signed, because we're trying to figure out how. we
Yeah.
do ticketing.
Yeah.
Okay, or how we,
yep,
with the computer, so we need the contract signed to figure out who's covered and who's not.
Okay.
Are those students covered that come over here for the night and then go back to the Bayfield?
I think we could, I mean, Robin and we can take this offline after this and.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, but we need the contract signed so we know
Yep.
what the deal is, because our ticketing supervisor is. Because we don't want to tell the crew something and then change it 2 weeks later.
Nope.
This-
we want to get this right the first time.
yep.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Thank
I'm
you,
just
Cal.
gonna chime in quick with Evan's comment and his question of, does the boat crew who work in the morning have suggestions as to what works for this issue? As the captains are in charge of the boat, so they should be comfortable with the system and how they count.
So to comment on that, I guess, if you're asking us, yes, I mean, everything that we've essentially put forth so far has been in collaboration with those captains, so a lot of the concern comes from the captains and, as management, we see those concerns as well. So where we've been coming from is directly from them, and their solutions have been incorporated into these. Again, with the biggest one, of course, just being, is the count accurate? Do I know who's on the boat as far as how many people? And then the second one being, who's watching? What's going on, right? And so I believe we brought that forward, and that's essentially what we're trying to work through. So to answer the question, Evan, yes, the every captain has sort of put in their piece on it, and it's, there's a wide range, but ultimately this whole endeavor is, fueled by management recognizing, kind of an issue here.
So.
You could take that back to them, and I think we'll look into getting, unless you have cards, already that can be used that don't have. I mean, it can be a MAG card with the person's name on it.
Have to be.
It doesn't, because in my mind, at least, it doesn't have to interact with your software system at all,
In any
right?
way.
It's just it's mechanical.
Gotta be something class.
That's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, but I have a question. So what you're saying is if the student does not have a card, they don't get on the boat.
Right.
I would say that is true. I think, at a minimum, they have to get a paper ticket and get
They
yelled
still
at.
need to get on the boat. You're
Yeah.
gonna cause a whole lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, there are gonna be some times when the kids.
Someone might forget a card. If they don't get on the
Then
boat,
they have to go to the ticket taker and say, hey, I forgot my card at home. Can you print me out? But it's only gonna be, the ticket taker needs to know that person really is a student.
Well, I think that.
But those cards have to go to the chaperone. She's gonna come with them. So those tickets have to go to the chaperone.
I think the odds of somebody trying to get free ridership via a missing card to a ticket counter and pretending to be a student are zero.
Oh,
That's just being obtuse.
yeah, maybe another student, but
It's not gonna happen. It's ridiculous. I'm not gonna entertain it.
Okay, good.
All right.
Thank you.
I think we may have at least
Please
the
do.
beginning of a solution. If Cal, if you can offline
Yeah.
work with their crew and Robin and see if we can come up with something in this line that'll work.
What about the contract, when do you expect to?
I think as soon as we can get this solved, we'll get the contract
And
signed.
so our understanding is that if a student comes during the day, back sick, they get charged full price and they get charged to, an account which will send the bill to school or to.
But normally what would happen with that?
What we talked about a long time ago was setting up on a charge system, school no chat, which is like. It gets charged to school, it gets charged to the town, it gets charged to J. Wills, you know, it's a charging account. And then under that. School no chat, we have the 14 names of the students that are.
And it could also be student no shop or no card,
Oh, no,
you know,
it,
I mean-
it takes a fair amount of time to do a charge ticket, you don't wanna. In the morning like that.
I mean, it's just no chaperone also means no card or no card.
No, I think it's. If there are a lot of events, a lot of work in the 2 minutes that the ticket seller has to sell. But those tickets were, or that account was going to be sent to. Town or school, and it was going to be full price. Because they don't have chaperone during the day or at night. So it'd be Bayfield kids hanging around in Bayfield. And yesterday I went down there at the 8:30 vote just for
Take a look.
another reason, and. There was a kid who showed up late. His pajamas on.
Yeah,
Okay. I think we beat this.
yeah, flog,
To death for now.
good. So the contract with the school is sort of predicated on getting this thing sorted.
Yes.
Good.
And we did clarify that that charge would come back to the Harbor Commission or the town rather than to the school for the
Right.
after hour or midday. Okay.
Yep.
It won't be much.
We'll move on to special boat propane deliveries. Update.
Yeah, so, well, kind of how we had left things with that whole situation is we recommended for the Bremmers to communicate with Cal to come up with, or Mifflin, and to come up with a solution for them needing the early morning boats, for the propane deliveries. Cal did work with Charlie on that. So there is a little confusion as to what is still being requested because Cal is under the impression that they are accommodating for that early morning boat on Thursdays as of right now. To my understanding, it seems as though they want the flexibility to have that early morning boat.
Yeah.
On days other than.
Then Thursday?
I did speak with Paul yesterday. And I let him know that the next step is for them to, again, work directly with Cal on any specific requests that they have. Cal was very welcoming and was like, please, like, have them call me. Like, if something can be done, like, he'll make it happen. He also brought up that, there is gonna be slightly more flexibility with the schedule at like around like the November 17th.
Yeah.
Time, because they'll probably be able to pull a weekend crew, to have more flexibility for those boats during the week, because they won't necessarily need one of the weekend crews. So I did let Paul know that this is all like for the next month, and then there is the opportunity for more flexibility. And then this is also just up until like, once the 7 PM boats are done, there'll be even more flexibility with that. But regardless, the concerns and what their specific requests is should be just call Cal. They have his cell phone number, just call him directly. His request was to meet next week with Miffle and Zach and Glenn and I to do kind of a propane 101. I did say that might not be the most beneficial thing that's what's needed, that maybe we should start with what their specific request is.
Yeah,
Directly with Cal. So I'd just encourage him again to call you, and I'm happy to call him again and because he was busy yesterday when he called me. I'm happy to recommend that again for them to bring their specific request. Yes.
I just want to, I mean, we've had a relationship long before it became a town entity.
Yeah.
We've gone through regulations and, he's educated me on things and I've educated him on things. We've had a great relationship. So I just want to say that, I feel it's an extension of that, and it's, if they have concerns and we're not meeting something, to call and reach out, because, that's happened before.
Yeah, sure.
We've had times where we haven't met, and, we're usually able, again, to date, I'm not aware of not needing something. If I say, hey, here's an option, here's what we can do right now, does that work? It's usually been yes, and where we currently stand, that's the way I understand it. So until I have I need this trip, only this trip works, or you're not able to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of anything we're not currently doing to meet their needs.
Well, I wish he was here. It's the one meeting he hasn't made, and the reason I wanted it was on the agenda, so we could figure out why he's so upset.
yeah, because it sounds really as if.
Slamming books and
Yeah,
he's been irate. So we're just trying to resolve it.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, and he called the office and either Cal or I make like the large vehicle reservations. And what's nice about Roberts is they'll call a week and a half ahead because they want to plan things.
Yeah.
And we basically offer them and they don't complain. I think they're.
I'm just confused as to why we're at this point.
Why we're having even this
Let us know next time they. Thanks.
What's the frequency? Are they having trucks come over every week now, or is it every other week, or?
let's say that's about what it is, but a week to every other week, yeah.
It gets a lot more when the cold season starts, people are filling up with building tanks.
Well, especially if there's a potential for an ice road, shutdown, yeah, it'll be really
Oh,
bad.
yeah.
But again, by the time we're at that point, we're right back to where we've always been.
Right.
We'll be in December. Once we're in December, we're just gonna go back to a typical schedule where we have, 2 boats every morning right off the bat. Because we're probably gonna be down our smaller boats too, but there isn't a late trip, so each crew will be able to cover it just like normal. So there wouldn't be any change in December. Yeah.
So they always get the best spot because they call a week
in advance,
ahead. And then Gene or Nick will call later, so. Just because their organizational nuts.
So again, as far as we're aware, as far as I'm aware, we're meeting what they need, and if we're not, very open to hear what additional.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Voucher authorization process is next.
I asked that this be on the agenda because in researching the statute after I had met with Cal and Robin about some accounting streamlining opportunities. I came across the language that it appears as though as long as the Harbor Commission is not obligating the town financially, and the Harbor Commission has the funds in its own account, the Harbor Commission alone can approve the bills.
Okay.
That'll
So
streamline.
it's- Yeah,
that, good.
so I've reached out to the town's attorney to confirm that. I haven't heard back yet, but I'm assuming this attorney happens to be pretty responsive. I assume I'll hear before the town board meeting on Tuesday. And so then they can acknowledge that that's in fact the process, and we can avoid
Duplication.
having to go through both boards for the bills.
Great.
And there's even actually another provision that allows the town board to set up an emergency repair fund. And that is for repairs that are needed in order for the boat to be back operating. And those funds that are in an emergency repair fund that's authorized by the town board can be authorized for expenditure on the signature of the Secretary of the Harbor Commission. And don't even need to go to the full Harbor Commission.
Those would still be revenue funds generated from
Yeah,
boat revenue, not.
yeah. But it'd be set aside from those funds. It'd be part of those funds, but a set aside.
Yeah. So implementing that, you see it as just like a budget line item or creation of a
think-
separate account?
Well, it doesn't say, I think that probably a fund doesn't have to be a separate account. It can probably be a bookkeeping entry.
What,
What Zach is saying,
The line item.
you know, a segregated part, for bookkeeping purposes of, 50,000 or whatever we determine in talking to Miffle is, an appropriate amount. Maybe it's 100,000. But something that doesn't even require
yeah,
going to the
what do we need to do that?
let's wait to hear from the lawyer and
Okay.
make sure that we're on
Good.
good ground on that.
Yep,
But I think hopefully that would streamline some of the processing.
Review of the tariff, cargo tariff?
And that was also something that came up in my plotting through the statutes. Is that there is a requirement that Harbor Commission not discriminate in terms of the type of cargo. So a carton of Coca-Cola should be the same as a carton of, Jack Daniels or whatever. We can definitely discriminate as to the size of a carton, the weight of a carton, all of the other things, but it seems like that you can't discriminate based on
content.
the content of the cargo. So, I don't know how much we even do on this with stuff going on freight on the deck, but I think it's something maybe we want to take a look at for sure when we redo the tariffs for next year. Might be something to look at. So that's all I had on that.
Oh, go ahead, Cal, sorry.
Just have a kind of a comment or a question on that, is if it's, which I think is worth looking into and we're going through that, is, there's certain cargoes, and I think it would be fine the way that the tariff is currently written. But there's certain cargoes that are hazardous, it requires, special attention.
Mhm.
So just to make sure that, again, we're making sure, well, it's okay to discriminate because it's, requires X, it requires a fire extinguisher, it requires, I just want to make sure that that is, spelled out in that, just so it doesn't become a headache after the fact.
Sure, sure.
Well, and typically cargo that's like beer or liquor or something like that, or cigarettes, the crew watches more carefully and we take back the Bayfield if people don't pick it up by a certain time.
Okay.
Just because we don't want,
Beer on the dock.
right, or Beach Club has a case where mixed bottles in there and somebody goes down there and takes a bottle, you know what I mean? So,
Okay. Anyhow, I just wanted to raise that for the commission.
Yeah,
I will move that I'll make a motion that we move agenda item number 11, review of the Miffle management contract, to the end of the agenda. And then the next thing would be future agenda items. Right. Oh, let's, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks.
so future agenda items. Like communication vehicle that we're talking about, saying newsletter, but whatever it is. What else?
I don't know that there's,
I have two questions. How is the budget going and does the Harbor Commission need to approve the budget in one of their meetings?
Yes, let's add that. That's a great call. Hopefully we'll be ready. Or at least for a discussion.
And at this point, I think the town is assuming that the Harbor Commission is going to require no tax support, no levy support for the coming year. And actually, when we do need that, we need to let the town know by October 1st of whatever year it is that we will need. I think we talked about this in prior meetings, that we didn't think we were going to need levy support.
Well, we have those funds are kind of set aside and built into the initial loans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this year is definitely covered.
Yep.
I was gonna ask that Katie print out copies of the resolutions that went along with the bonds, for at least for the budget committee, so we have that.
Yeah, I have a folder of.
So,
Okay, just one last question. And maybe this is, I don't know what the process is, but speaking of tariffs, when and how would that be reviewed, and when is it due to the Railroad Commission for 2025?
I think, go ahead.
It can be sent in at any time. It's just, it takes a month, like we sent it in. At least this is the process that I went through. You send it in, I would email it in on December. Well, say like, email it in like middle of January, then make it effective the third week in February. And then, so we would work on it in December and early January, because it would tie in with our brochures. That's the price on there and on others.
Yeah, and my understanding, Lauren, is that the budget committee would be looking at the tariffs in terms of the revenue side of the budget. And though that then also needs to be approved by the Harbor Commission, and I think the statute requires that it be also approved by the town board. But I do believe that Robin had indicated that the staff at Miffle would be interested also in participating in some early discussion about the tariffs. So
It's right in,
okay, great.
Okay, good.
but you could send a tariff in tomorrow. So it doesn't matter, because I have had a situation in the past where I sent it in, and I said, oh my God, you know, I messed up a bank card rate, so I just sent in another one. Just said this.
And they accommodate that.
Yeah, they're very good to work with,
They have like 3 people in their office for the whole site.
Whatever.
yeah. What's the railroad commission?
You know,
We're just under the commission.
Right.
Any other items for the next meeting agenda? What about the date? When do we want to meet?
If I look ahead at the calendar, next Thursday is the 24th. I know that Katie and Cal and Robin will be at the PBA, if I'm not mistaken. And then the next Thursday after that is the 31st, Halloween already.
Why don't we wait till then?
31st. I may be out of town that week, but certainly meet without me.
I will write down the 31st then, if you guys are all in agreement.
Yeah, you could always Zoom.
I could zoom.
Yeah, good.
So we agreed?
Yeah.
First.
And then public comment, B. Go ahead, John.
At the last meeting, I asked for a price list for hauling material over. I guess people thought I wanted because I watched the meeting afterwards, thought I was interested in using the refrigeration truck, which was not. I don't want my wire cold, it's hard, it's stiff. I was more asking like for the truck with the Tommy level. It could be put on the back, dropped off at a job site, I'll meet the person there, push it off, the truck can go. It just, if you're gonna start a delivery service for anybody else, it ought to be available for everybody on the island. And then I can decide, or anybody else can decide if they want to use that. So I think with your tariff, for your cargo tariff, that pricing should be in there too. I wasn't looking for the refrigeration truck, that would make no sense.
Well, it operates as a box truck without the refrigeration on also, so there's potential there depending on the size of the load.
But I think it would be too big for. I've seen chocolates on it, but that's what I was more going towards the times. I mean, I just got 150-foot spool of wire and it's almost so the foot.
I think Cal did say it could be used for that, but without the refrigeration unit on, it can be used for some big items, some furniture, some things like that. So-
Sure, that's all.
And I think that's the only truck with the lift gate, right?
We have a smaller truck, yes, yeah, but it's a significantly smaller lift gate, like 2 feet.
So anyways, that's what I was asking for.
Good job.
I just wanted to do a quick update here since we're, wrapping up on the panel. So again, to keep it as fast as possible, I'm trying to get some thoughts on it here. So we're still in Fraser. One of the, I guess I'll start with the issue. One of the issues we ran into was, so, I ordered the propellers 4 months ago to be here essentially a month ago. The casting was bad, so they had to recraft. Well, up until yesterday, we were still holding on to having them here in time. Yesterday, their CNC machine went down, which then again added the final nail in the coffin to that delay. We won't be able to get the new props on while it's in Fraser. However, to just be extra safe, I had the old props repaired as cheaply as possible. So of course, they're ready to go back on, and I had them sent to Cullenberg, the manufacturer, who's willing to sign off on them saying, these props are good until spring, right? So at this point, we're putting those old props back on. We didn't pretty them up, we just fixed them as cheaply as possible. I put about a $500 budget on that, and they were able to meet that. So we're putting on those props, which will require, a haul out in the spring to swap them around, but that can be done in Washburn ultimately. So that's the only, I'd say, bad news, and it's not all that bad, it's just not exactly what I was hoping for. Everything else is going really well, they're just finishing up the painting. We're hoping to be flooded sometime this weekend, and the boat would then, if everything continues to go as well as it is, we would have it back early next week before we go to PDA. That's the current plan. The one looming piece that is unknown, which can shift this, pretty dramatically, is if the shafts, we've moved the shafts, we've realigned everything, and we're hoping that they bolt back up the transmission. Again, to kind of make it short, if they don't bolt up, which I'll note today, that's kind of a realistically like a 4 or 5 day process. You have to break out the engines, you have to realign it, the chock vest, you have to let it sit for 3 days just so the whole boat can settle. So that would be the last piece yet that could push this backward. But everything was looking great yesterday. Everything else is going quite smooth. There's been no major surprises on this thing, just a couple small here and there. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but as of today, pending that news, we're anticipating early next week for that boat to be.
I have an observation, which is gratitude that you decided to take the props that we have and get them fixed, albeit not perfect, yet sufficient for.
Yes, and I specifically
That's a great
chose Cullenberg, because we had to send the shafts in, so
Yeah.
the shafts were going. But they're the manufacturer, so they get a little bit more leeway. They did a full analysis on it. They said, we looked at the whole thing, we looked at every blade, which I then have to take to the Coast Guard because they failed. There's been so many cracks. The Coast Guard's looking at these props and saying, hey, what's going on here? They're at the end of their life. So I kind of got a piece of paper that says, the manufacturer is saying you know, which is, I could have repaired a house for the same price or a Fraser. But since it comes from the manufacturer, it kind of comes with that nice certificate, yeah,
Thank you.
yep. Is there any other questions on
The
that?
chefs, one was that a little more than the other.
Yep, and everything was back in a spec, so that was great because there was a potential for the shafts not to be able to be straightened. If they were bent in the wrong spots, which is a new shaft, which is expensive, but they were able to repair that right back to spec.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess we'll revisit agenda item 11, the review of the MIFO management contract. And we'll go into closed session for this under state statute 19.85(1)(e) for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating public funds.
According, that's a motion, I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We'll
Thank you.
do a roll call vote for this. Jay Wiltz,
Aye.
Susan,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Pete. I'm an aye.
Aye.
Evan?
And
How do I stop the live stream?
If you can hear me.
Jay,
Okay.
on the
Yep.
bottom, where you kind of signed on to YouTube, I think it says like more and there's
More,
three
yeah, click
dots.
on